Thank you so much, Jill. Well, the man suspected of shooting and killing 11 people at a Pittsburgh synagogue has pleaded not guilty to several charges. Robert Bowers faces a 44-count indictment charging him with murder, hate crimes, obstruction, and the practice of religion, several other crimes. Joining us now, District Attorney in Oneida County, Scott McNamara, to talk about these crimes. And a lot of people have said, the federal government as well, saying the death penalty is, the move to make in this case. It's very emotion driven, but there are laws, there are jurisdiction type laws that would make that maybe happen or not happen.
Sure. Typically what happens is whenever there's a major crime that could possibly be prosecuted by the federal government, there's a negotiation that goes on behind the scenes between the local prosecutor's office and the U.S. Attorney's office. Traditionally in our country, crime has always been prosecuted at the local level. But when you talk about a major crime like this, it's very common for the federal government to come in. In New York State, we do not have the death penalty, and the federal government does. Although the federal government has the death penalty, historically they do not use it very often. It is not typically something that is actually sought and then taken to its extreme.
Now, you dealt with this personally in a local case a few years back of a local police officer who was killed in the line of duty.
Yes, in the Joe Corr case, we dealt with that. In the shooter in the Joe Corr case would have been eligible for the death penalty. He was actually shot and killed himself just a couple days after Joe was killed. Technically, the people involved could have possibly faced the death penalty, but from my experience, the U.S. government does not typically go after the death penalty except in very extreme cases. This being one, obviously you're talking about what's being reported as one of the worst anti-Semitic shooting or homicides in our country's history. So.
Absolutely, and you see, Jeff Sessions saying, death penalty is the way to go to this, and that they will, seek the death penalty in this. How likely is that with, Pennsylvania law and then with federal law? Do you think that this will be a case that will be prosecuted first through the state or the federal government?
It's hard to say, because obviously when you have a local district attorney, like myself, there's one there, he's probably looking, or she's probably looking at saying, hey, listen, this is a case that should be prosecuted locally. This is a crime that took place in our jurisdiction. At least in our state, if the state goes first, the federal government can go second. You cannot go the other way around. If the federal government goes first, you have a double jeopardy issue. I know right now Pennsylvania, although they have the death penalty, they kind of have a moratorium on executing people. So sometimes it's semantics. You're talking about you're seeking the death penalty, but the reality is the person will never be executed. So, in this case, though, I think we're at a different level. I mean, this is one of the few cases where I think the U.S. Government would be probably hard-pressed not to look at the death penalty because it's such a terrible shooting, and there's so many people who got killed.
All right. Thank you so much
for joining us. Thank you for having me.
Oneida County District Attorney Scott McNamara. We appreciate your insight on this case.
Well, thank you.
All right, we'll be back after this.